Happy Wednesday. I had to think for a minute what day it is. My name's Tanya. I am the founder of Helping Hearts Homeschooler. And basically what I do is I help parents and grandparents navigate the good, the bad, and the ugly of homeschooling and parenting and marriage and all the things. So if you're tuning in, let me know where you're watching from. If you're on YouTube, welcome back. If you're brand new, welcome. Consider subscribing if you like this kind of content. And if you want to see like the behind the scenes when it comes to everyday homeschool life, making money from social media, influencer marketing, all of that, check out my Instagram and follow my Instagram stories. I do a lot of like behind the scenes stuff on there. So without further ado, today you've already seen the title. Just kidding, you haven't, because I forgot to put a title on here. So if you're watching Instagram, I guess you haven't seen the title. But if you're watching on Facebook, you've already seen the title. So this is the 7 ways to make your communication better in your marriage. I'm excited about this because this is something that my husband and I struggled a lot with when we were first married. So I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, not just us. The first way to make your communication better is learn to listen. We live in a culture that is very much about speaking and not listening. Guys, I've got notes down here, so if you see me looking down, that's why. But we just live in a culture that we like to hear ourselves speak. How many times, and for real, let me know, because I like to have conversations with you guys in the comments. So how many times when someone's telling you something, instead of listening, you're already thinking what you're about to say next? How many times does that get us in trouble in our marriage when you stick your foot in your mouth? A couple of things that will help you really be present and listening and not thinking about what you're going to say next is fold your hands in front of you, make eye contact with the person that you're talking to. Now, again, I'm specifically talking about marriage, but you can apply, I would say 90% of this to any relationship, including the relationship that you have with your child. And then the final thing to really make sure you're listening is repeat what they're saying back to them in a respectful way that you're kind of summarizing it. Because you want to make sure that you're hearing it in the way that they're saying it. A lot of times we will hear through our own lens of insecurity. So what the person on the other end is telling us is different than what we're hearing. I always love to give real world examples. And if you have a real life example of this, please let me know in the comments, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. Very early in our marriage, I remember my husband very politely after work one day, we had both gotten home from work. We both worked full time. So we had both gotten home from work, and he just said, "Hey, can you please make sure that I have, lunches ready for the rest of the week?" Because part of my job was doing the dinner, and then I always made enough extra to do his lunch the next day. Well, I had been kind of slacking in that area, so he had not had lunches, and he was having to buy lunch. Well, we were at a point in our marriage that we did not have a lot of extra money. You guys have known my story. I don't have a rags to riches story, but we definitely were broke. Our bills were paid. We didn't really believe in using credit cards or anything. We lived very much within our means, but there was no extra money. There definitely was not extra money for him to be eating out every day. And so that was kind of like the space. He was coming from a very logical, respectful place. But what I heard, because I was already insecure about this, was you're a bad wife, you're a bad mom, you're failing, you can't do anything right, like you're bad at managing your time, blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason I heard this is because in my mind, I thought I was failing at those things. I was working all the time. I was a brand new mom. And I just felt like I was juggling a lot and I wasn't doing great at it. Now, I was really bad at time management back then. So again, I was hearing through my own lens of insecurity. Had I repeated back to him, and we ended up getting in a fight over it. Had I repeated back to him, say, "Hey, so what I'm hearing is this," he would have said, "No, I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is we really don't have the money for me to eat out. Let's come to a solution that'll help both of us." Instead, I just got huffy and puffy and I went to bed mad. And he probably didn't have lunch the next day. I don't remember. It was a while ago. We just hit our 8-year anniversary, so it was a little bit ago. But probably didn't have lunch. So, first thing is just learn to listen. Second thing is find out facts. So again, we want to make sure that what we're hearing is correct, but we also want to make sure that when we are questioning our spouse, that we're doing it in a respectful way, that we're finding out facts instead of passing blame onto them or pointing fingers. So again, I'm going to give you an example because it's really important to use what's called dialogue questions because they show respect. So questions like, did you happen to fill in the blank? By chance, did you ... During moments of trying to find out facts, you want to avoid sarcasm. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back because I did really good at this a few weeks ago. My husband, I had texted him and said, hey, on the way home from work today, do you mind swinging by the library and grabbing the library books? Because I had ordered, you know how I don't know. You may not know. I don't know. Let me know. Does your library do this? I think most of them do now. Where you can go online, enter in your library card, and you literally can just order books, and then you can drive through and pick them up. Super convenient. Absolutely love it. So he was supposed to do that. He had agreed to do it. He walked in the door with no library books. Now, I very easily could have said, let me guess, you forgot. And that would have been very aggressive. And I wouldn't have said this, but it would have implied you're an idiot. You can never remember to do anything right. Do I need to text you 5 minutes before like I'm your dang mom? That's how it would have come off. And he would have gotten mad. I wouldn't have gotten my books. I probably wouldn't have gone the next day either. And we probably would have had an argument. Instead, I said, babe, did you happen to remember the library books? Oh, I didn't. Do you need them today? I can go get them. And I didn't. At that point, I did not need them that moment. I just needed them sometime that week. So I was like, no. I was like, do you mind just picking them up tomorrow on the way home? He said yes. And then I said, would you like me to send you a reminder text 20 minutes before work is out? And he said yes. And I sent him a reminder text and I got my books. So find out the facts. For him, he had just worked a really long day and he just innocently forgot. He wasn't doing it maliciously to sabotage my homeschooling. He just forgot. So the first one is learn to listen. Second one is find out the facts. And then number 3 is think before you speak. And guys, I feel like this is something we learn. Sorry, this sweater rides up and it chokes me. This is something we learn, I feel like, when we're in kindergarten. But how many of us adults don't practice think before you speak? I can absolutely raise my hand to this. So one of the huge, huge, huge reasons I think a lot of adults, especially moms, don't practice this is because it's very hard to practice when you're feeling overwhelmed, irritated, agitated, behind, whatever. So that's where time management really comes into play with making sure that we get up before our kids get up. We get a head start on our to-do list or whatever it is that irritates us most. For me, it's cooking and cleaning. I like to get that, sorry, or not. I don't know why I said sorry. I'm catching my hair in my fingers. I like to get that out of the way as soon as I possibly can. And I like to be able to sit down, do my journaling, do my meditating, have my coffee. So when my daughter wakes up, I'm not rushing around and taking things out on her that she doesn't deserve to be taken out on. It's my fault that I didn't get my butt up on time and I didn't get my stuff done and I didn't get my mindset right. Why should she be punished for it? The answer is she shouldn't, but that's something that we really have to focus on. And then same thing, if you get a good start to your day, chances are you can keep that going more often than not. When my husband gets home, I'm still having a good day. Now, I'm not saying everything went my way that day, but at least I didn't get irritated and I wasn't agitated by every little thing. So if he walked in the door and didn't have a great day, it's okay because I had a good day because I made sure I got up and made myself have a good day. So it's easier to think before you speak when you have a clear mind and you have gotten your priorities, I guess. Number 4 is don't get defensive. Let God be your defender. If you're right, you don't need to defend yourself. If you're right, you can have a clear, level-headed conversation and the truth will come out. Now, the only reason that people get defensive is, no, I shouldn't say that. There's a couple reasons people get defensive. One of the most common ones is because they are in the wrong and they know it. So they're automatically going to be defensive. Now, another reason would be if they think that you are passing the blame to them. So if you're saying words like, you always do this, you never do this, it's kind of a trigger and it's easy for the other person to get defensive. Now, it doesn't make it right, because now this is where there's 2 times that you get defensive. Like me as a human, there are 2 times I get defensive. If I'm wrong or if I'm speaking out of emotion, which goes back to number 3, thinking before you speak. And it's a lot easier said than done when you're emotional. I remember, and guys, it took me years to learn this. And again, this isn't just a marriage thing, but it does help a lot in our marriage. I remember years and years and years ago, we had a meeting with a couple who was having some disagreements with my husband and I. And as soon as we sat down, the wife was so defensive. And she sat there with her arms crossed and she just like, well, you did this and you did this and well, I didn't do this. And my husband and I sat there and we tried to have a very clear-cut conversation with them. And it ended with the wife kind of like, you're just a bully. You're just mean. I just don't like you. And she kind of like got up and huffed out. Basically, and it came out weeks later that they were in the wrong. But at the time, there was no acknowledgement of that. At the time, it was kind of her last-ditch effort to kind of throw a fit and get her way. And less than 24 hours, her husband was calling my husband and apologizing for the way his wife acted in the meeting. I remember getting up and leaving that meeting, and my husband, first he looked at me, he was like, you know what, I am so proud of you that you did not speak through your emotion, and even though she was attacking your character and belittling you, like you kept your cool and you just acted like an adult. And at the time, that was huge, because that was one of the first times that I had done that, because I've been working really, really hard on being a good communicator and controlling my emotions and controlling my words. And then he's like, you know what, we should pray for her because she clearly does not know how to control her emotions. And we knew that this family had already had trouble with their kids, and they had some older kids that were having issues, and, you know, the communication just wasn't there within the home. And to this day, unfortunately, it's still like that from what the kids say. And so when you learn how to control your emotions and when you learn how to have a conversation without getting defensive, your whole family functions better as a unit, not just your marriage. So just to recap what we've done so far, number 1 is learn to listen. 2 is find out the facts. 3 is think before you speak. 4 is don't get defensive, I think. Yeah, don't get defensive. Let God be your defender. 5 is consider the other person's spirit. So sarcasm. Now, I've heard some Christians say sarcasm is like the devil and you should never use it. I'll be honest, my husband and I are very sarcastic people. We have been from the get-go. I'm not anti-sarcasm. However, there's a time and a place. And when the other person is already annoyed, or you know it's a time of day that they are not a joking around person, that's not the time or the place. I do have to remind myself, and I know my husband, I'm sure, reminds himself as well, that it doesn't, just because I think it doesn't mean it always needs to be said. How many of us are guilty of just because we think it, we automatically think that it needs to come out of our mouth? So for me, that's late at night. And when I say late, anytime past like 6:30, because I get up really early. For my husband, it's first thing in the morning. We are complete opposites. But for example, well, again, I'll just give you a few real life examples. So there's 3 of us living in our house. I think we have like 6 or 7 towels. So at any time, there's 1 or 2 on a shelf in the bathroom, there's 1 or 2 in the washer, and 1 or 2 in the dryer. So that means if I ever skip even one day of laundry, which I'm not perfect. Today I skipped laundry. In fact, now that I'm thinking about doing this video, I skipped laundry today. Chances are there's probably no towels up in the cabinet. My husband's probably going to have to come through and get a towel out of the dryer. Well, I distinctly remember him walking through, or not distinctly remember, I guess this happens quite a bit. There's not a towel in the cabinet, and he'll be walking through to the kitchen, and granted, this is 4:30 in the morning, so he's not in a great mood because he's not a morning person, and he'll say, honey, are there any towels in the dryer? Now, there are always towels in the dryer, yet he asks that every single time. Now, I very easily could say, did you look in the dryer? Like, you have 2 legs, go walk. Instead, I either say, oh yeah, there's a couple in there if I'm in the middle of like cooking or doing something, or say, yeah, let me grab you one. Because again, just because I think it doesn't mean it needs to be said. Now, for him, again, he has to really watch his mouth at night. I've already told you guys, I teach women how to make money on social media. So that's something I've been doing for the last 6 years. I've gotten really good at it. So sometimes I will do coaching calls 6:30, 7:30 at night, because most of the women that I coach have a full-time job, and they're doing this on the side to eventually replace their full-time job. And then I have a handful that do it just for an extra like $200 to $300 a month, literally just to like shopping money and stuff. So having said that, I work around their schedule when I'm coaching them. Now, ideally, I would not coach anyone at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, because I'm about ready to go to bed. So if my husband gets home late, which means we eat dinner a little bit later than normal, and then I'm going to run to the office and do a coaching call, I'll ask him like, hey, do you mind putting the leftovers away? Now, he could say, no, that's your job, woman. Get in the kitchen. And I would be irritated. He didn't mean anything by it. It literally is just a joke, but I'm already tired. Like, I don't want to sit here and be sarcastic. Can you just put the dang food away? And he knows that, and so he always puts it away if I need him to. Now, this brings me to number 6, which is 6 and 7, I guess, but 6 is guard your thoughts. What goes in your mind is probably going to come out your mouth. So this is where you really need to guard. What kind of couples are you hanging around? How do they talk to each other? Because it will rub off on you before you rub off on them. What kind of TV shows are you watching? How do the husbands and wives talk to each other? Because again, what you're watching is going to come out of your mouth. So that's a very short point. But then number 7 is raise your standard. Just because everyone else does it does not mean that you need to do it. Just because everyone else talks about how lazy their husband is. Guys, my husband is lazy. You know that? He has lazy moments. But you know, I also have lazy moments. I think every human in the world has lazy moments. It does nobody any good for me to sit around and tell all the faults of my husband and how lazy he is. It doesn't do anyone any good for him to sit around with his friends and tell everyone how lazy I am and the lazy moments of, oh, my wife didn't even get up till 9 o'clock this morning. Or, you know, I came home from work today and there were toys everywhere. My kid hadn't taken a bath yet. Like, what does she do all day? It doesn't do anyone any good. But it's normal in our society to sit around and complain about our spouse to our friends. I see it online. I see it in person. It's normal. However, we should raise the standard. We should be the new normal. I hate even using that because of the world that we live in right now, the new normal. But for marriage, we should be the new normal. As Christians, our marriage should be the example. Like I said, have fun with each other. Be sarcastic. I don't care. Again, that's not unbiblical. But don't ever tear the other person down. So again, going back to my real life examples, had my husband come through the kitchen asking if there was a towel in the dryer, and instead of saying yes or grabbing one or whatever, had I said something to the effect of, I don't know, I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. But something to the effect of, man, you're so lazy you can't even get a towel for yourself? Sarcastically. It's going to set him off. Like, it's not cool to poke fun at someone's laziness or blondness or whatever you want to call it, because that's a character thing. And again, he's not lazy for not getting a towel. He's just 4:30 in the morning and he's not thinking straight. If I ask my husband to put the leftovers away and he looks at me and says, leftovers? Girl, have you looked in the mirror lately? You do not need to be worrying about the leftovers. That's not cool. That's tearing me down. That is not fun. I don't care if you're private or if you're out in public. So don't ever tear each other down. If you think it's funny, doesn't matter, don't do it. But definitely don't do it in public. So maybe you're working on this in private. We all work on things, that's fine. But the first thing you should make sure is that you are never disrespecting your spouse in public. You can disagree with them, but do it respectfully. And notice I did not say your husband, I said your spouse. Because if you're a man and you're watching this, I know we are in like the Christian circles where a lot of times it's talked about wives, you know, don't disrespect your husband and don't let other people know you don't agree with him. You know, there's like a big stigma against that. But a lot of times it's not reversed. I'm not saying that. You should be respecting your spouse. So husbands, you should be respecting your wives. Wives, you should be respecting your husbands. In public, you should be each other's biggest cheerleader. If you have an issue, talk about it when you get home. Now, I'm not saying like big moral stuff. I get it. Like if you see your husband across the room and he's making out with some chick, totally different story. I'm talking about the normal stuff. I don't know many people on here that is the case. Actually, I don't know anyone on here that's the case. But I'm sure there probably is one. There's 13,000 of y'all. So there's probably one person that is their story. But again, real life example. We were out to eat with a couple. And the husband is telling us about his job. And the wife was a stay-at-home mom at the time. Telling us about his job. And he's a CEO of a company. And he's very successful. And the wife started saying something about remember a time, and he literally looked at her and said, "Hush, woman, this is not your conversation." And I squeezed my husband's hand under the table because we were holding hands. And that squeeze meant, one, if you ever tell me that at home, I'm going to be pissed, but you better never tell me that out in public in front of other people. That husband, in that few short seconds, told us, my wife is an idiot. She does not know anything outside of the home. I do not value her opinion whatsoever. I never want it said of me that I displayed to a room full of people that my husband's opinion doesn't matter to me. And I never want it said of him that my opinion doesn't matter to him. So be very, very careful how do you speak to each other in public, but it starts at home, because if you do it at home, chances are it's going to bleed over into public. So I want to leave you guys with this. Again, 7 things. If you did not catch the live, that is okay. I'm going to post this up on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to post it on here. I'm just going to post it straight to YouTube. So you can go check it out over there if you want to. But we get told a lot that we are a power couple and we're the perfect marriage and we have the perfect family. And just honestly, a lot of stuff that's not true. Because I want to leave you guys with this. 1, you don't live with us. You have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. We have the same struggles that everyone and their mom does in their marriage. Nobody's perfect. 2, one reason that you think that about us is because we choose to live a way that's not normal. We choose to live in our marriage completely by biblical standards, and that is it. And then 3, we're constantly learning and we're constantly growing and constantly putting effort into our marriage. We are constantly reading marriage books. I love marriage books, marriage podcasts, marriage YouTubes, whatever. This came off of the YouTube. I didn't make this up. This is just stuff that I've learned and I've adapted, and now I'm rolling it out to you guys. But it's hard to have a bad marriage when you're constantly working on it. It's hard to have a bad mindset when you're constantly working on it. It's hard to have bad child rearing habits when you're constantly working on them. Make sense? Are you connecting the dots with that? For my birthday this year, my birthday is on Sunday, so just a few days. My husband bought me a marriage retreat that we're going on because he knows how important it is to constantly be working on our marriage before there's anything to work on. So I just want to leave you with that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you on my next video.